Good day, ma'am. Good morning, 111. We are the group 4. I am Abby, and today we will be discussing the Berlo's SMCR model of communication. But first, let us discuss what is this model of communication all about and where does it come from. The Berlo's model of communication has mainly 4 components, which are essential to describe the communication process. They are sender, message, channel, and receiver. Each of the 4 components are affected by many factors. In 1960, David Berlo expanded the SMCR model of communication from Shannon-Weaver model of communication in 1949. He described the factors affecting the individual components in communication, making the communication more efficient. In today's discussion, we prepared 4 example scenarios that will highlight the issues of each component. Let's start off with source.
The source is the sender or the origin of the message, and according to Berlo's model of communication, the sender transferred the information through these following factors: communication skills, attitude towards the subject or the audience, knowledge, social system, and its culture. Let's examine further the source through this outgoing phone call skit.
As you see, it is an outgoing phone call which makes the person as the source of the information. In the skit, the source is trying to contact the customer service about a certain product. We can see that he is reading the packaging of a Korean ramyeon, which represents 4 factors: communication skills, knowledge, social system, and culture. Communication skill talks about the ability to write, read, listen, and speak. Knowledge is the familiarity with the information you want to convey. Social system is about the norms, beliefs, values, rules, religions, and etc. Culture talks about the background of the speaker or the receiver. The person calling is also making an irritated face about the product he bought, which shows the attitude towards the subject factor. Attitude towards the subject and the environment really affects the meaning of the information.
Message is the substance that the encoder or the sender tries to transmit to the decoder or the receiver. It may be contextualized and attached to various media for communication, either written and verbal forms. When an individual converts its thoughts into words, a message is created. This is called encoding.
For the communication to commence, the source will generate this package of information to be encoded in the channel. Now the source, acting as an encoder too, will transmit this data through the content or body of a message. Elements such as verbal and non-verbal aspects that may influence the meaning of the message, the structure or how the message was composed or arranged, the treatment or how the message was conveyed or delivered, and the code to which the message will go through, language, gestures, other platforms such as video, music, text, and etc.
One great example of this is how we construct our message through email. Let's watch this. It is clear that the student or the encoder of the message does not know how to compose or structure a proper email message, as well as what language is appropriate to use. If the content and treatment are unclear, the decoder of the message, which is the teacher in this case, might face a hindrance in effective communication. Thus, the student may consider learning how to communicate effectively through the use of email etiquette.
Channel refers to the medium through which a message is sent or received between 2 or more people. Several channels can be used to send or receive the message, such as seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and even tasting. Communication can happen through the use of several channels like visual, auditory, tactile, and combined channels.
For visual channels, the transfer of messages may be done through facial expressions, body language, gestures, posture, and many more. For auditory channels, messages may be conveyed using spoken words, sounds, mobile devices, and audio content. For tactile channels, touch sensations, therapeutic touch, and others may be utilized. Lastly, for combined channels, communication may proceed through the use of a combination of various sensory channels. Examples are audiovisual media or consoling a person with touch and spoken words. An example of a relevant issue with regards to the use of communication channels were shown in this video.
And how that can affect the kinds of messages you're choosing to express and through what channels. So let's define this really quickly. Communication channel is the pathway through which you are communicating. The conduit the message is traveling through from point A.
Hello? Guys, is it just me or did sir stop sharing their screen? Hello?
As channels play a vital role in the aspect of communication, the precedent video shows its importance through an application in a timely use. The skit shows that when channels are disrupted, the flow of information will be affected. For the communication to be effective, in this case, the student must have a more stable data connectivity to avoid disruptions.
The receiver. In this model of communication, the source is not the only important factor for its success, but also the receiver or the one who decodes the message. This is supported by the fact that they have the same delineation. In order to execute it flawlessly, the receiver should at least have the same level of communication skills with the source in the area of grammar, fluency, and delivery. The attitude of the receiver towards the person talking to is also important depending on the context of the message and their relationship.
For the decoding of the message, the receiver should be at least familiar with the context of the information. This helps on understanding definitions and ideas connected with the subject they are discussing. The social systems and the culture of both sides were also crucial upon deciphering informations, as it dictates the source of the context itself, and how would the receiver might understand depending on their own origin.
Here's a short skit about the receiver component.
What?
The source in this scenario is a rich Konyo student while the receiver is a typical island boy. Due to the glaring cultural differences seen in the language used, the receiver immediately misinterpreted the source, thinking that he meant what he first said, asking if he is a rag. He immediately rejected the explanation and blocked her right away. In this scenario, cultural intelligence and understanding are the keys to surpass societal barriers.
Since we already discussed the different major components under Berlo's SMCR model of communication, let us discuss its purpose and disadvantages. One of its purpose is that, since it discusses the different major components that form the basic communication process, it emphasizes the coding and decoding of the message that can help us to a more efficient communication. Unlike any other communication models, the SMCR model elaborates the subcomponents and major components such as language, culture, text, and sensories. On the other hand, its drawbacks or its disadvantages are it has no room for noise, it has no feedback, it is a linear and complex model. It requires people to be on the same level of communication, which rarely happens on people on their everyday lives. And lastly, it excludes the sixth sense as a channel of communication, which is an asset to us human beings. It is understanding and thinking. That would be all for our discussion about Berlo's ASUM CR model of communication. We hope that you learned something from us today. Again, this is Group 4. Thank you for listening.